In the glittering underbelly of Manhattan, a betrayed woman transforms into a vengeful queen, rescued by a charismatic millionaire. Twists await. Before we start the story, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate the story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. The rain pounded against the towering glass facades of Manhattan's financial district, like a relentless drumbeat, mirroring the storm brewing inside Natalie Hargrove. It was a crisp autumn evening, the kind where the city's elite gathered under chandeliers to pretend their lives were as polished as the marble floors beneath them. The gala at the opulent Sterling Hall was in full swing. Black tie affair for some charity no one truly cared about, but everyone attended to network, schmooze, and show off. Natalie stepped out of her sleek black limo, her heels clicking sharply on the wet pavement. She was dressed in a form-fitting black gown that hugged her curves like a second skin, its neckline plunging just enough to command attention without screaming for it. Her dark hair cascaded in loose waves, and her eyes, sharp emerald green, held a fire that could burn through steel. As she entered the grand ballroom, heads turned. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through autumn leaves. "Is that Natalie Hargrove? The tech whiz who vanished years ago?" someone murmured. Natalie ignored them, her focus laser-sharp on the man across the room. Sean Whitaker, her ex-fiancé, the snake who had slithered into her life and poisoned everything she held dear. He was schmoozing with a group of investors, his charming smile as fake as the Rolex on his wrist. Little did he know, tonight was the night his kingdom crumbled. Natalie made her way to the stage, clutching a sleek tablet in her manicured hands. The MC introduced her as the evening's surprise speaker, praising her recent rise as the CEO of Hargrove Tech, a powerhouse in cybersecurity that had taken Wall Street by storm. Applause filled the room, but Natalie felt no warmth from it. This was her arena now, and she was about to unleash hell. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice steady and commanding, amplified through the speakers. "Thank you for having me. Tonight, we celebrate innovation and integrity in finance, but let's talk about what happens when those values are betrayed." The room quieted, intrigued. Sean froze mid-sip of his champagne, his eyes locking onto hers. A flicker of recognition and fear crossed his face. Natalie tapped her tablet, and the lights dimmed slightly. Holographic projections sprang to life around the ballroom, floating like ghosts in the air. Gasps echoed as images and videos materialized. Emails, bank transfers, secret meetings. There was Sean, caught on hidden camera, discussing a massive fraud scheme that had siphoned millions from innocent investors, including the algorithm Natalie had created years ago, the one he'd stolen from her. But that wasn't all. The holograms revealed more. Sean in compromising positions, not just professionally but personally. Affairs with influential figures, bribes to politicians, and worst of all, his betrayal of Natalie replayed in vivid detail. Clips of him mocking her behind her back with his lover, Elena Vasquez. The crowd murmured in shock. Sean's face drained of color. "What the hell is this?" he muttered to his companion, but his voice carried in the hushed room. Natalie's lips curved into a cold smile. "This, Sean, is the truth. The brain behind a network of financial frauds that ruined lives, including mine. You thought you could bury me? Well, I've risen." Before the event, she'd orchestrated the perfect delivery system. Her trusted friend, Lucas Bennett, a gritty journalist with a personal axe to grind against Sean, had slipped into the venue hours earlier. Lucas had lost everything, his savings, his marriage, in a scam Sean had pulled off a decade ago, back when Sean was just starting his climb up the greasy pole of Wall Street. That loss had fueled Lucas's career in investigative reporting, turning him into a bulldog who sniffed out corruption. Tonight, he was Natalie's secret weapon. Disguised as a caterer, Lucas had placed elegant little gift boxes on the tables of key journalists scattered throughout the room. Each box, wrapped in silver paper with a simple card reading, "A token of appreciation. Open on my signal," contained a pen drive loaded with irrefutable evidence. Documents, audio recordings, witness statements. Lucas had grinned to himself as he did it, whispering under his breath, "Payback's a bitch, Sean." Now, as Natalie gave the signal, a subtle nod during her speech, the journalists tore open their boxes. Laptops flipped open. Phones buzzed with notifications as they plugged in the drives. Headlines began forming in their minds. Wall Street tycoon exposed in massive fraud. Chaos erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed like lightning. Sean lunged toward the stage, his face twisted in rage. "You bitch! This is fabricated! I'll sue you into oblivion!" Security moved in, but Natalie stood her ground, unflinching. Fabricated? The holograms don't lie, Sean. Neither do the federal agents waiting outside. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Police burst through the doors, badges gleaming. Sean was grabbed, his arms pinned behind his back as handcuffs clicked shut. "Natalie, you have no idea what you've started," he hissed, his voice low and venomous. "This goes deeper than you think. You're playing with fire." She leaned in close, her breath cool against his ear. "Then watch me burn it all down." As Sean was dragged away, the room buzzed with frenzy. Journalists scrambled to file stories. Guests whispered in hushed tones about the scandal of the century. Natalie stepped off the stage, her heart pounding not with fear, but triumph. But Sean's parting words lingered like a shadow. What did he mean by deeper? Was this just the tip of an iceberg that could pull her under? Lucas approached her in the aftermath, slipping through the crowd. He was a tall, rugged man in his 40s, with salt and pepper hair and eyes that had seen too much deceit. "You did it, Nat," he said, pulling her into a quick hug. "That bastard's finally getting what's coming to him. Remember when he ruined me? This feels like justice for all of us." Natalie nodded, but her mind raced. "Thanks for the assist, Lucas. Those gift boxes were genius. But he mentioned something bigger. We need to dig deeper." Lucas's expression darkened. "I've got leads. Old contacts from my fraud days. But be careful. This city's full of snakes." As the gala dissolved into pandemonium, Natalie slipped out into the rainy night, her limo waiting. She glanced back at the glowing hall, a sense of unfinished business gnawing at her. How had she gotten here? From broken-hearted wreck to avenging queen. It all started 5 years ago, in the gritty streets of Soho, where betrayal had shattered her world. But that's a story for another time. What secrets from her past will unravel next? Stay tuned to find out how Natalie fell and rose again. 5 years before the chaos of the gala, Manhattan buzzed with the restless energy of a city that never slept. In the heart of Soho, where cobblestone streets clashed with sleek glass storefronts, Natalie Hargrove was a rising star in the tech world. At 27, she was a data analyst at Quantum Fintech, a startup tucked into a loft-style office with exposed brick walls and too much exposed ambition. Her days were a whirlwind of code, coffee, and late-night brainstorming sessions, her fingers dancing across keyboards as she built something revolutionary, an algorithm that could sniff out financial fraud like a bloodhound on a scent. Natalie wasn't just good, she was brilliant. The kind of brilliant that made her colleagues jealous and her bosses nervous. Her life felt like a dream. She lived in a cozy, overpriced apartment in the West Village, its windows framing views of fire escapes and twinkling city lights. Every morning, she'd grab a latte from the corner cafe, dodging bike messengers and tourists, her mind already racing with lines of code. By night, she was planning her wedding to Sean Whitaker, the charming Wall Street broker who'd swept her off her feet 2 years earlier. Sean was all charisma, tall, with a boyish grin and hazel eyes that seemed to promise forever. He'd take her to dinner at places like Le Bernardin, where they'd laugh over glasses of Pinot Noir, his hand brushing hers as he talked about their future. "We're gonna run this city, Nat," he'd say, clinking his glass against hers. "You with your brain, me with my deals. Unstoppable." Natalie believed him. Why wouldn't she? He was her rock, the guy who showed up with flowers after her long days, who listened to her ramble about algorithms like they were poetry. She didn't see the cracks in his facade, the way his smile faltered when she talked about her work, or how his phone buzzed a little too often with client calls late at night. Then there was Elena Vasquez, Natalie's best friend since their college days at NYU. Elena was a socialite with a knack for turning heads, her wardrobe a parade of designer labels, and her laugh a weapon that disarmed anyone in her orbit. She was always at Natalie's side, dragging her to rooftop bars or art gallery openings in Chelsea. "You work too hard, Nat, Elena would tease, tossing her glossy black hair. Let's live a little. Natalie adored her. Elena was the sister she never had, the one who'd helped her navigate the cutthroat social scene of Manhattan's elite. They'd spend hours at Natalie's apartment, sipping wine and planning the wedding, Elena gushing over dress designs and venues. "Sean's lucky to have you," she'd say, her smile warm. Too warm, Natalie would realize later. But for now, life was golden. At Quantum FinTech, Natalie's algorithm was starting to turn heads. She called it Sentinel, a program that could detect patterns of fraud in real time, flagging suspicious transactions before they even cleared. Her boss, a wiry man named Greg Coleman, praised her in meetings, though she noticed his enthusiasm came with a side of unease. "This could be a game changer, Natalie," he said one day, leaning back in his chair. "But it's gonna make some powerful people nervous. Be careful who you trust with this." She laughed it off. "Greg, it's just code. Who's gonna care that much?" He gave her a look, one she didn't understand at the time. People with money to lose. Outside work, Natalie's world revolved around Sean. He'd take her for walks along the Hudson River, their breath fogging in the cool evening air as they talked about their dream house in the Hamptons someday. One night, under the glow of the High-Line string lights, he got down on one knee. "Natalie Hargrove, you're my everything," he said, his voice soft but sure. "Marry me. Let's build a life together." She said yes, tears blurring. The city lights. The ring, a sparkling emerald-cut diamond, felt like a promise etched in stone. They set a date for 6 months out, a spring wedding at a rooftop venue in Tribeca. Elena was thrilled, volunteering to be maid of honor. "We're gonna make this epic, Nat," she said, pulling her into a hug. "You deserve a fairy tale, but fairy tales have villains." Natalie didn't notice the glances Sean and Elena shared when they thought she wasn't looking. She didn't catch the way Elena's hand lingered on his arm during group outings, or how Sean's late meetings started piling up as the wedding date approached. She was too busy pouring her soul into Sentinel, working late nights to perfect it. One evening, she overheard a hushed conversation in the office break room, 2 colleagues whispering about a big deal involving her algorithm. "Sean's got connections," one said. "If he's in on this, it's going to be huge." Natalie frowned, confused. Sean hadn't mentioned anything about her work. She brushed it off as office gossip, but a seed of doubt took root. That night, she asked him about it over dinner at a cozy Italian spot in the village. "Hey, you haven't been talking about Sentinel with anyone, have you? I heard some weird stuff at work." Sean's fork paused mid-air, but his smile didn't waver. "Babe, you know I'm your biggest fan. I might have mentioned how brilliant you are to a few investors, that's all. Gotta hype up my future wife, right?" She laughed, reassured, but the seed didn't die. It grew, watered by little things. Elena canceling plans last minute, Sean's phone screen lighting up with texts he quickly dismissed. One night, alone in her apartment, Natalie found herself staring at her engagement ring, the diamond catching the light like a warning. Was she being paranoid, or was something off? At work, the tension escalated. Greg pulled her aside one morning, his face grim. "Natalie, I got a call from the board. They're pushing to sell Sentinel to a rival firm, Apex Capital. Did you authorize any pitches?" Her stomach dropped. "No, I didn't. Who's behind this?" Greg hesitated. "I don't know, but it smells like an inside job. Watch your back." That night, she confronted Sean again, her voice shaking. "Did you pitch my algorithm to Apex? Tell me the truth." He leaned across the table, taking her hands. "Nat, I'd never betray you. You're my world. Maybe Elena mentioned something. She's got friends at Apex. Let's not fight, okay?" Elena? The name hit like a slap. Natalie wanted to believe him, but the doubt was a splinter now, digging deeper. She went to bed uneasy, the city's hum outside her window sounding more like a warning than a lullaby. The wedding was weeks away, and her perfect life was starting to fray at the edges. What was Sean hiding? And why was Elena's name tangled in this mess? Stay tuned for the next chapter, where the threads of betrayal unravel, and Natalie's world comes crashing down. Who can she trust when the knives come out? The air in Natalie's West Village apartment felt heavy, like the city itself was holding its breath. It was the night before her wedding, and the space was a whirlwind of tulle and anticipation. Her wedding dress hung on the closet door, a cascade of ivory lace that shimmered in the dim light of her bedside lamp. She should have been giddy, sipping champagne with her bridesmaids, but instead, she was pacing, her bare feet cold against the hardwood floor. The seed of doubt planted weeks ago had grown into a tangled vine, choking her peace of mind. Sean's evasiveness, Elena's sudden distance, the whispers at Quantum FinTech about her algorithm. It all felt wrong. She'd spent the day at the rooftop venue in Tribeca, finalizing details with the planner. Everything was perfect. White roses, fairy lights, a view of Manhattan's skyline that promised a magical night. But when she texted Sean to confirm his tuxedo fitting, his reply was curt. Running late at work. See you tomorrow, babe. No call, no warmth. Elena, her maid of honor, had bailed on the rehearsal dinner, claiming a last-minute family thing. Natalie's stomach churned. She poured a glass of wine, trying to shake the feeling. But her phone buzzed with an email from Greg, her boss. We need to talk about Sentinel. Urgent. Meet me at the office now. It was 10 p.m., but Natalie grabbed her coat and hailed a cab. The rain had started again, streaking the windows as the taxi weaved through Soho's narrow streets. At Quantum FinTech, the office was eerily quiet, the usual hum of keyboards replaced by the patter of rain outside. Greg was waiting in the conference room, his face drawn. Papers were scattered across the table. Contracts, emails, financial reports. Natalie, it's bad, he said, sliding a document toward her. Apex Capital bought Sentinel. The deal closed this morning. Your algorithm's gone. Her heart stopped. What? I didn't authorize that. How did this happen? Greg's eyes were heavy with regret. Someone leaked the code. The board pushed it through, said it was a strategic move. I tried to stop it, but he hesitated, then handed her an email printout. This came from an anonymous source. It's got Sean's name all over it. The words blurred as she read. The email detailed a pitch to Apex Capital, complete with technical specs of Sentinel, her work, her soul, signed with Sean's initials. Her hands shook. No, he wouldn't. He loves me. Greg's voice softened. Nat, I'm sorry. Check. His phone. Protect yourself. She left in a daze, the rain soaking her as she walked back to her apartment, too numb to care. Sean was supposed to be at his bachelor party, but she needed answers. She called him. No answer. Elena's phone went straight to voicemail. Desperate, she remembered Sean had shared his location with her months ago. A silly gesture to prove he was always hers. She opened the app. His dot wasn't at a bar or a club. It was at Elena's penthouse in Chelsea. The cab ride felt like a lifetime. Natalie's pulse pounded in her ears as she climbed the stairs to Elena's building, her wet sneakers squeaking on the marble floor. She used the spare key Elena had given her years ago, her hands trembling as she unlocked the door. The penthouse was dimly lit, jazz music drifting from the speakers. And there, on the plush white couch, were Sean and Elena, tangled in each other, oblivious to the world. Natalie froze, her breath catching. Sean? Her voice was barely a whisper. They sprang apart, Elena's silk robe slipping as she gasped. Sean's face went white. Nat, oh God, it's not what it looks like. Not what it looks like? Her voice cracked, rage bubbling up. You're in her apartment half naked the night before our wedding, and you sold my algorithm to Apex? You stole my life's work. Elena stood, her composure icy. Calm down, Natalie. You're being dramatic. Sean was just helping me with something. Helping you? Natalie laughed, bitter and sharp. You were my best friend, Elena. How long has this been going on? Sean scrambled for words. Nat, I love you. This was a mistake. The Apex deal. I did it for us. For our future. For us? She stepped closer, her eyes blazing. You sold my work, humiliated me, and now this? There is no us anymore. She tore off her engagement ring and threw it at him. It bounced, off his chest, clattering to the floor. Elena smirked, a cruel edge to her voice. Maybe you weren't cut out for this world, Nat. Manhattan's not for the weak. Natalie turned and ran, the rain mixing with her tears as she stumbled into the night. Back at her apartment, she collapsed, sobbing until her throat was raw. The next morning, she didn't show up at the venue. The wedding was canceled, her phone flooded with messages she ignored. At work, the fallout was swift. Quantum FinTech fired her, citing breach of confidentiality for the Sentinel leak, though she knew it was a cover to appease Apex. Her savings drained fast. Rent in Manhattan didn't forgive. Friends she thought she had vanished, siding with Elena's charm or Sean's influence. She was alone, her dreams shattered. Her apartment a prison of unpaid bills and empty wine bottles. Weeks later, Natalie stood on the edge of her fire escape, the city sprawling below like a glittering lie. The wind tugged at her hair, and for a moment, she wondered what it would feel like to let go. That's when she heard a knock at her door. It was Victor Lang, a private investigator with a weathered face and a cheap suit, hired by Sean to keep tabs on her. "Miss Hargrove, I'm just checking in," he said, his voice gruff but not unkind. "Sean's worried you might do something rash." "Worried?" she spat, her voice hoarse. "He ruined me. Tell him to go to hell." Victor's eyes softened, just a fraction. "I've seen guys like him before. They don't stop unless someone makes them. You're smarter than he thinks. Don't let him win." He left, but his words stuck. Natalie stepped back from the edge, her hands shaking. She wasn't done yet. But how do you rebuild when everything's gone? As she sat in her darkening apartment, a flicker of defiance sparked. Someone out there might see her worth. Someone, like Andrew Kensington, the millionaire who'd soon cross her path. Stay tuned for the next chapter, where a chance encounter in a dive bar changes Natalie's fate forever. Who is Andrew, and what does he really want? The neon sign above the dive bar in the Lower East Side flickered, casting a sickly green glow over the cracked sidewalk. Inside, the air smelled of stale beer and regret, the kind of place where dreams came to drown. Natalie sat at the end of the bar, her third whiskey neat burning a path down her throat. It had been 2 months since her world imploded, since Sean's betrayal, Elena's knife in her back, and the loss of her algorithm Sentinel to Apex Capital. Her apartment was a maze of eviction notices, her phone silent except for debt collectors. She'd stopped crying weeks ago, but the numbness was worse, like her heart had been carved out and left on that penthouse floor in Chelsea. The bar was mostly empty, save for a few regulars nursing their drinks and a jukebox crooning an old Springsteen tune. Natalie stared at the amber liquid in her glass, her reflection distorted in its surface. She barely recognized the woman looking back, hollow cheeks, eyes dulled by defeat. "What's the point?" she muttered, more to herself than anyone. "Hell's point of what?" A voice cut through the haze, smooth as velvet but with a playful edge. She looked up, startled. A man leaned against the bar a few stools down, his tailored blazer out of place in the grimy setting. He was in his early 30s, with tousled dark hair, a jawline that could cut glass, and blue eyes that sparkled with mischief. Andrew Kensington was no stranger to Manhattan's gossip pages, a venture capitalist playboy who threw lavish parties in his Upper East Side penthouse and dated models faster than most people change their socks. But tonight, he was just a guy in a bar, his tie loosened, a whiskey in his hand. "Didn't mean to eavesdrop," he said, sliding onto the stool next to her. "But you look like you're solving the world's problems in that glass. Care to share?" Natalie snorted, her guard up. "Just trying to forget them, actually." He grinned, undeterred. "Fair enough. But you don't strike me as the forgetting type. I'm Andrew, by the way." She hesitated, then shook his outstretched hand. "Natalie, and I'm not in the mood for small talk." "Perfect. Neither am I." He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "Let's skip to the good stuff. What's got you looking like you're plotting to burn Manhattan to the ground?" Maybe it was the whiskey, or maybe it was the way his eyes didn't flinch from hers, but Natalie found herself talking. She spilled it all. The stolen algorithm, Sean's affair with Elena, the humiliation that had stripped her bare. Andrew listened, his face shifting from playful to something deeper, like he recognized the kind of pain she carried. "That's rough," he said when she finished, swirling his drink. "But you're still here. That's more than most people. I can say after a fall like that." She laughed bitterly. "Here? In a dive bar, broken jobless? Yeah, I'm a real success story. Andrew's smile was sharp, like he knew a secret she didn't. Success isn't about where you are. It's about where you're going. And I'm betting you're going places, Natalie. Ever heard of Kensington Ventures? She nodded. Everyone in tech knew his firm, a powerhouse that funded startups and crushed competitors. What's a guy like you doing in a place like this? Scouting talent, he said, his tone half serious, half flirtatious. And I think I just found some. Your algorithm. Sentinel, right? It's brilliant. I heard about it before Apex snatched it. You've got a mind most CEOs would kill for. Her eyes narrowed. Flattery won't pay my rent. Then how about a job? He pulled a business card from his pocket, sliding it across the bar. Consultant for my firm. No strings attached. I could use someone who thinks like you. Natalie stared at the card, her heart racing. Was this a lifeline or a trap? She'd learned the hard way not to trust charming men, but Andrew's gaze held something genuine, or so she wanted to believe. Why me? She asked. You don't even know me. Because I know a fighter when I see one, he said softly. And I've got a feeling you're not done fighting. The next day, she showed up at his office in the Upper East Side, a sleek tower with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Andrew was all business now. Though his smile still carried that playful edge, he laid out the deal. She'd analyze data for his portfolio companies, help them spot vulnerabilities, and maybe, just maybe, work on something new to rival Sentinel. The pay was enough to keep her apartment, maybe even rebuild her life. Their first meeting stretched late into the evening, the city lights glittering outside. Andrew ordered takeout from a nearby sushi spot, and over miso soup and sashimi, the conversation turned personal. You remind me of someone I used to know, he said, his voice quieter now. My dad. He was a dreamer, built something from nothing, until someone like your ex screwed him over. Natalie paused, chopsticks hovering. What happened? Andrew's jaw tightened. Lost everything. Fraud, lies, the works. I don't let people like that win anymore. The confession hung between them, electric. Natalie felt a spark, not just of hope, but something else. Attraction, danger? She couldn't tell. But when their hands brushed as they reached for the same soy sauce packet, her breath caught. Andrew's eyes met hers, and for a moment, the air crackled. Careful, Natalie, he teased, breaking the tension. I'm trouble. She smirked, her old fire flickering. Good, I could use some trouble. Over the next few weeks, Andrew became her lifeline. He pushed her to think bigger, to rebuild her confidence. They'd work late in his penthouse, papers strewn across a mahogany table, jazz playing softly in the background. One night, as rain lashed the windows, he poured her a glass of bourbon. To new beginnings, he toasted, his voice warm. She clinked her glass against his. To fighting back. But Andrew wasn't all charm and salvation. Late one night, she caught him on a call, his tone sharp. No, I said handle it. Sean Whitaker's a liability. Keep digging. He hung up, unaware she'd overheard. Her stomach twisted. Why was Andrew investigating Sean? Was this job really about her talent, or was she a pawn in his game? The question gnawed at her as they dined on a rooftop one evening, the Manhattan, skyline sparkling below. Andrew looked at her over the candlelight, his smile disarming. You're different, Natalie. Most people would have given up. What keeps you going? She hesitated, then answered honestly. Anger. And maybe a little hope. He leaned closer, his voice low. Hold on to both. They'll take you far. Their fingers brushed again, and this time, neither pulled away. The chemistry was undeniable, but so was the shadow of doubt. As Natalie rebuilt her life under Andrew's wing, she couldn't shake the feeling that his motives weren't as pure as his smile. What was he hiding? And how deep did his vendetta against Sean run? Stay tuned for the next chapter, where Natalie dives into a web of secrets and new allies, and the stakes get higher than ever. Can she trust Andrew, or is he just another betrayal waiting to happen? The Upper East Side penthouse of Andrew Kensington was a world away from the dive bar where he'd found Natalie months ago. Its floor-to-ceiling windows framed Manhattan's glittering skyline, the Chrysler building winking in the distance like a conspirator. Inside, the space was all sleek modernity. Marble countertops, leather furniture, a jazz record spinning softly on a vintage turntable. Natalie sat at a glass table strewn with laptops and coffee cups, her fingers flying over a keyboard as she debugged code for one of Andrew's portfolio companies. It was late, the kind of late where the city's hum softened to a whisper, and the air between them crackled with unspoken tension. Andrew leaned against the counter, a glass of bourbon in hand, watching her work. "You're relentless," he said, his voice warm with admiration. "Most people would have clocked out hours ago." Natalie glanced up, a half smile tugging at her lips. "Most people don't have a point to prove," he chuckled, crossing the room to sit beside her. "Oh, you're proving it, all right. My team's already calling you the Code Queen." The nickname made her laugh, a sound she hadn't heard from herself in months. Since Andrew had pulled her out of that bar in the Lower East Side, she'd been rebuilding, not just her career, but herself. Working for Kensington Ventures was a lifeline, a chance to flex her intellect and claw her way back from the abyss Sean and Elena had pushed her into. Andrew's mentorship was intense, pushing her to think bigger, to see vulnerabilities in systems others missed. But it wasn't just business. There was something else growing between them, a pull that made her heart race and her instincts scream caution in equal measure. Their late-night work sessions had become routine, often ending in takeout and banter that edged into flirtation. Tonight, as rain streaked the windows, Andrew slid a plate of dumplings toward her. "Fuel for the queen," he teased, his blue eyes catching the light. She grabbed one, smirking. "Careful, Andrew. Keep feeding me, and I might never leave." "Maybe." "That's the plan," he said, his voice low, playful, but with an edge that sent a shiver down her spine. Their hands brushed as they reached for the same dumpling, and neither pulled away. The moment stretched, electric, until Natalie broke eye contact, her cheeks warm. "Focus, Playboy," she said, nudging his shoulder. "We've got a deadline." But focusing was hard when Andrew was so close, his cologne a mix of cedar and ambition. She couldn't deny the chemistry, but doubts lingered. He'd given her a job, a purpose, but his late-night calls about dealing with liabilities and his cryptic mentions of Sean kept her on edge. Was he her savior, or just another man with an agenda? Her suspicions deepened one evening when she stayed late alone in his office. Andrew had stepped out for a meeting, leaving his desk cluttered with files. Curiosity got the better of her, and she flipped through a folder labeled Whitaker. Inside were bank statements, legal documents, and a photo of Sean shaking hands with a man she didn't recognize, a distinguished older figure with silver hair and a politician's smile. A sticky note read, "Marcus Hale, key player." Her pulse quickened. Why was Andrew digging into Sean? And who was Marcus Hale? Before she could process it, the door opened, and Andrew walked in. "Snooping, Code Queen?" he asked, his tone light but his eyes sharp. Caught, she held up the folder. "What's this, Andrew? Why are you obsessed with Sean?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's not obsession. It's personal. Sean screwed over my dad years ago, ruined his company, drove him to ruin. I'm not letting him do that to anyone else, especially you." The confession hit her like a wave. "So, this job, am I just a tool for your revenge?" "No," he said, stepping closer, his voice earnest. "I saw you in that bar, broken but still fighting. I knew you were more than your pain. Yeah, I want Sean to pay, but I also want you to win." His words were raw, and when he reached for her hand, she didn't pull away. The room felt smaller, the air charged. "I don't know if I can trust you," she whispered. "Then let me prove it," he said, his thumb brushing her knuckles. The moment teetered on the edge of something more, but a phone buzz vibrated the table, breaking the spell. Andrew glanced at the screen, his jaw tightening. "I need to take this. Stay here." As he stepped onto the balcony, Natalie overheard snippets. "Victor, what did you find? Hale's involved? Keep it quiet." Her stomach twisted. Victor Lang, the private investigator who'd shown up at her apartment after the betrayal, was working for Andrew now. Or was he? Victor, it turned out, was a wild card. Hired initially by Sean to keep tabs on Natalie, he'd started digging deeper, uncovering a web of corruption. One night, he met Natalie at a diner in Hell's Kitchen, his trench coat damp from the drizzle. "Sean's not just a cheating bastard," he said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. "He's tied to Marcus Hale, a senator with big plans. They're running a money laundering ring through Wall Street. Your algorithm? It's being used to cover their tracks." Natalie's blood ran cold. "Why tell me this?" Victor leaned back, his eyes tired. "Because I've seen what guys like Sean do to people like you. And maybe I'm sick of being their errand boy." Meanwhile, Elena wasn't done with Natalie. From her penthouse in Chelsea, she plotted with Kira Novak, a hacker with a reputation for cracking systems no one else could. Elena, sipping martinis, laid out her plan. "Natalie's getting too cozy with Kensington," she said, her voice venomous. "We need to take her down before she digs too deep." Kira, a wiry woman with neon-streaked hair, smirked at her laptop screen. "Already on it. Her new project at Kensington Ventures? I'm this close to stealing it." Back at the penthouse, Natalie pushed Andrew for answers. "Who's Marcus Hale? And why is Victor feeding you info on Sean?" Andrew hesitated, then sat her down. "Hale's a senator with his hands in dirty money. Sean's his golden boy. I've been tracking them for years, waiting for a weak spot. You, Natalie, you're the key. Your brain, your fight. We can take them down together." The offer was tempting, but trust was a fragile thing. That night, as they stood on his balcony, the city sprawling below, Andrew stepped closer. "I'm not perfect," he said, his voice soft. "But I'm on your side. Let me show you." He leaned in and their lips met, a kiss that was equal parts fire and fear. Natalie pulled back, breathless. "If you're playing me, Andrew, I'll burn you down too," he grinned, unfazed. "I'd expect nothing less." But as Natalie dove deeper into Andrew's world, the stakes grew higher. Victor's intel hinted at a conspiracy bigger than she'd imagined, and Elena's schemes were closing in. Could she trust Andrew's heart, or was he just another piece of the puzzle? Stay tuned for the next chapter, where alliances are tested, betrayals strike, and Natalie faces a storm, literally and figuratively. Will she outsmart her enemies, or fall into their trap? The wind howled through Manhattan's concrete canyons, carrying the first flakes of a December snowstorm. Natalie stood in the shadow of a graffiti-streaked alley in Hell's Kitchen, her breath fogging in the icy air. Her coat was too thin for the weather, but she barely noticed, her mind racing with the weight of what she'd uncovered. Andrew's penthouse, with its warm jazz and bourbon-fueled confessions, felt like another world now. The documents she'd found, linking Sean to Senator Marcus Hale and a money laundering ring, had cracked open a conspiracy that made her stolen algorithm look like small change. She clutched a burner phone Victor had given her, its screen glowing with a single message. "Meet me. Midnight. Don't tell Kensington." Victor Lang was a ghost in the city, a private investigator who played every side. He'd been Sean's lackey once, watching Natalie when she was at her lowest, but now he claimed to be her ally, feeding her dirt on Sean and Hale. She didn't trust him, not fully, but his intel was too valuable to ignore. The diner where they'd met last week had been a start, but tonight's rendezvous felt different. Dangerous. She glanced at her watch. 11:58 p.m. The alley smelled of dumpster rot and wet asphalt, the kind of place where secrets were traded or buried. Footsteps crunched behind her. She spun, heart pounding, to see Victor emerge from the shadows, his trench coat dusted with snow. "You're late," she snapped, her voice low. "Had to shake a tail," he said, his gruff tone laced with unease. He handed her a flash drive. "This is big, Natalie. Hale's not just a senator, he's the puppet master. Sean's his front, washing dirty money through Apex Capital. Your algorithm's hiding their tracks, but they're planning something bigger. A cyber heist on Wall Street." Her stomach dropped. "How big?" "Big enough to tank the market. And they're setting you up to take the fall." Before she could respond, headlights sliced through the snow. A black SUV screeched to a stop at the alley's mouth, and Victor shoved her behind a dumpster. "Stay down," he hissed, pulling a gun from his coat. Two men in suits stepped out, their faces obscured by the storm. "Lang, you're done," one barked. "Hale knows you're talking." Victor fired a warning shot, the crack echoing off the walls. "Run, Natalie!" he shouted, but she was already moving, her sneakers slipping on the icy pavement. Gunfire erupted behind her as she sprinted toward the neon glow of 9th Avenue, her heart hammering. She didn't look back, but Victor's fate gnawed at her. Was he dead? Or worse, had he set her up? She ducked into a 24-hour bodega, panting, and called Andrew. "I'm in trouble," she said when he picked up. "Hell's Kitchen, now." 20 minutes later, Andrew's sleek Tesla pulled up outside. He looked disheveled, his usual charm replaced by worry. "What the hell happened?" he asked, pulling her into the warm car. She told him everything. Victor's intel, the flash drive, the ambush. Andrew's jaw tightened as he drove through, the worsening blizzard. "Victor's playing both sides," he said. "I hired him to dig into Sean, but Hale's got deeper pockets. We need to get you somewhere safe." They ended up at a secondary apartment in Midtown, a minimalist loft with views of the snow-choked city. Inside, Natalie paced, the flash drive burning a hole in her pocket. "Why didn't you tell me Victor was working for you?" she demanded. Andrew poured 2 glasses of scotch, handing her one. "I didn't want to scare you. Victor's a loose cannon, but he's good at finding dirt. I thought I could control him." "You thought wrong," she snapped. But her anger softened when she saw the concern in his eyes. He stepped closer, his hand brushing her arm. "I'm sorry, Natalie. I'm trying to protect you, but this is bigger than us." The air between them thickened, the storm outside mirroring the one inside her. She wanted to push him away, to guard her heart, but his touch was an anchor. "I'm scared, Andrew," she admitted, her voice breaking. "But I'm not running." He cupped her face, his thumb tracing her cheek. "You don't have to do this alone. We're in this together." Their lips met, urgent and hungry, the kiss a release of months of tension. It was reckless, dangerous, but Natalie didn't care. For the first time since Sean's betrayal, she felt alive. They pulled apart, breathless, and Andrew rested his forehead against hers. "We'll burn them down, Natalie. I promise." But the city had other plans. Across town, Elena was scheming. Her Chelsea penthouse was a fortress of ambition, its walls lined with art she'd bought to impress. She sat with Kira Novak, the hacker with neon-streaked hair and a chip on her shoulder. "Natalie's digging too deep," Elena said, swirling a martini. "She's with Kensington now, and they're trouble." Kira smirked, her fingers dancing, over a laptop. "I've already got a worm in her new project at Kensington Ventures. One click, and it's mine." Elena leaned forward, her eyes cold. "Do it, and make sure Sean takes the blame." The twist came days later, when Elena met Natalie at a crowded cafe in Soho, playing the repentant friend. "I'm sorry, Nat," she said, tears in her eyes. "Sean manipulated me. I have proof he's working with Hale." She slid a folder across the table, bank records, emails, enough to bury Sean. Natalie wanted to believe her, but Elena's sincerity felt rehearsed. Still, the evidence was gold. She shared it with Andrew, who was skeptical. "Elena's a snake," he warned. "She's covering her own tracks." He was right. A late-night hack revealed the truth. Elena was the mastermind behind the Sentinel. Theft, using Sean as her pawn. The revelation hit Natalie like a gut punch. "She played us all," she told Andrew, her voice shaking with rage. But help came from an unexpected source. Kira, tired of Elena's manipulations, contacted Natalie through an encrypted chat. "I'm done with her," Kira typed. "She's using you to take down Sean so she can run Hale's operation. I'll help you stop them." Natalie met Kira in a seedy internet cafe in Chinatown, the air thick with cigarette smoke and cheap coffee. "Why switch sides?" Natalie asked, wary. Kira shrugged, her eyes haunted. "I've been a pawn before. It sucks. Plus, I hate Elena's smug face. Their uneasy alliance paid off." Kira uncovered Sean's endgame, a cyber heist to crash Wall Street's trading systems, with Natalie framed as the culprit. "He's got a virus ready," Kira said, showing her the code. It's set to launch in days. Natalie's blood ran cold. She and Andrew worked around the clock with Kira's help to counter the virus. But as the storm outside raged, so did the one inside her. Victor's betrayal, revealed when Andrew found proof he was feeding Hale intel, cut deep. And Elena's double cross was a reminder. No one was safe. As they prepared for the gala where Natalie would strike, the city felt like a pressure cooker. Could she trust Kira? Was Andrew's heart true, or was he still playing a game? And what would Sean do when cornered? Stay tuned for the next chapter, where all roads lead to the gala, and Natalie's plan unfolds in a blaze of vengeance. Will she triumph, or has she underestimated her enemies? The Sterling Hall in Manhattan's financial district shimmered like a jewel against the autumn rain, its glass walls reflecting the city's restless pulse. Inside, the gala was a spectacle of wealth. Crystal chandeliers, champagne flutes clinking, and designer gowns rustling as Manhattan's elite mingled. Natalie stood in a shadowed corner of the ballroom, her black gown clinging to her like armor, her emerald eyes scanning the crowd. Tonight was the night. After months of betrayal, heartbreak, and clawing her way back from the abyss, she was ready to bring Sean, Elena, and their puppet master, Senator Marcus Hale, to their knees. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with the cold fire of vengeance. Andrew stood beside her, his hand brushing hers, a silent anchor. Their partnership had grown into something more. Late nights in his penthouse, stolen kisses in the rain, moments where his vulnerability cracked through his Playboy facade. "You sure about this?" he whispered, his voice low, his blue eyes searching hers. "Once we do this, there's no going back." Natalie's lips curved into a determined smile. "Good. I'm done looking back." Their plan was meticulous, a symphony of tech and strategy. Kira, the hacker who'd switched sides, had spent days infiltrating the gala's security system, rigging it to project holographic evidence of Sean's crimes. Lucas, Natalie's loyal friend and journalist, had slipped into the venue hours. Earlier, his weathered face hidden under a caterer's uniform. His personal vendetta against Sean, born from a fraud that had cost him his savings and marriage years ago, made him the perfect ally. He'd placed silver gift boxes on the tables of key reporters, each containing a pen drive loaded with documents, recordings, and witness statements. The cards attached read, "Open on my signal, Natalie's signal." Across the room, Sean schmoozed with investors, his charming smile as polished as ever. Elena was at his side, her red dress a siren's call, her laugh calculated to charm. Marcus, the senator, stood near the bar, his silver hair gleaming under the lights, his politician's grin masking the corruption Natalie was about to expose. She felt a surge of rage, remembering how they'd stolen her algorithm, her trust, her life. Andrew squeezed her hand. "We've got this," he said, his voice steady. "Kira's ready. Lucas is in place. My fortune's on the line, but it's worth it to see them fall." She turned to him, her heart softening despite the stakes. "You're risking everything for me. Why?" He leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear. "Because you're worth it, Natalie. And because I love you." The words hit like a shockwave. Before she could respond, the MC called her to the stage. She took a deep breath, her heels clicking as she ascended, clutching her tablet. The crowd quieted, intrigued by the mysterious CEO of Hargrove Tech. Sean's eyes locked onto hers, a flicker of unease crossing his face. "Ladies and gentlemen," Natalie began, her voice clear and commanding. "Tonight, we celebrate integrity. In finance. But some among us have betrayed that trust." She tapped her tablet, and the lights dimmed. Holograms burst to life, floating like specters above the crowd. Gasps rippled through the room as images appeared. Sean's emails detailing fraud, bank transfers to offshore accounts, secret meetings with Marcus. Clips showed Sean and Elena plotting to steal Sentinel, mocking Natalie's naivety. The final hologram was damning. Marcus, caught on tape, directing Sean to launder millions through Apex Capital. The crowd erupted in murmurs, Sean's face drained of color. "This is a lie!" he shouted, lunging toward the stage. "She's fabricating this." Natalie's smile was ice. "Fabricating? The truth doesn't lie, Sean." She nodded to the journalists, her signal. They tore open their gift boxes, laptops springing to life as they accessed the pen drives. Headlines formed in real time. Wall Street fraud exposed. Senator, Hale linked to money laundering. Elena tried to slip away, but Lucas blocked her path, his eyes blazing. "Going somewhere, Vasquez?" he said, his voice low. "You ruined my life once, not tonight." Police sirens wailed outside, growing louder. Officers stormed in, badges flashing. Sean was grabbed, his arms pinned as handcuffs clicked shut. "Natalie, you'll regret this," he hissed, his voice venomous. "You have no idea what you've started." Marcus, cornered by reporters, stammered denials, but the evidence was airtight. Elena's composure cracked, her eyes darting for an exit that didn't exist. Natalie watched from the stage, her heart pounding with triumph. "I came back as a queen," she said, her voice echoing through the speakers. "And queens don't kneel." The room exploded into chaos. Flashes of cameras, shouts of questions, the clatter of champagne glasses hitting the floor. Andrew pulled Natalie off the stage, his arm around her waist. "You were incredible," he said, his voice thick with pride. They slipped into a quiet corner, away from the frenzy, and he kissed her, fierce and unapologetic. "I meant what I said. I love you." Natalie's breath caught, her walls crumbling. "Andrew, She stopped, overwhelmed. "I think I love you too." But the victory was bittersweet. As they left the gala, snow falling gently now, Natalie couldn't shake Sean's parting words. What had she started? The flash drive from Victor, now in Andrew's hands, held more secrets. Details of a cyber heist Sean had planned to crash Wall Street, with Natalie as the scapegoat. Kira's countercode had delayed it, but for how long? Back at Andrew's penthouse. They pored over the data with Kira, who joined them after hacking the gala's system. "Sean's got a contingency," Kira said, her neon-streaked hair catching the light. "A virus, hidden in Apex's servers. If it launches, it'll wipe out Hargrove Tech and pin it on you." Andrew's face darkened. "I'll liquidate my assets if I have to. We'll stop it." Natalie looked at him, her heart swelling. He'd risked everything, his fortune, his reputation, for her. But the cost was high. As they worked through the night, the city outside cloaked in snow, Natalie felt the weight of what lay ahead. Sean was down, but not out. Elena was cornered, but snakes always slither free. And Marcus's connections ran deep. Had she won, or had she just lit the fuse to a bigger explosion? Stay tuned for the final chapter, where a shocking twist threatens. Everything Natalie's built, and Andrew's loyalty is tested in a deadly showdown. Will their love survive the storm? The snow had stopped falling, leaving Manhattan blanketed in a hush that felt almost sacred. Natalie stood in Andrew's midtown loft, the city's skyline a mosaic of lights through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The adrenaline of the gala still coursed through her veins. The memory of Sean's handcuffed exit and Elena's panicked face seared into her mind. But victory was a fragile thing, and Sean's parting threat, "You have no idea what you've started," hung like a storm cloud. She glanced at Andrew, hunched over a laptop with Kira, their faces lit by the glow of code scrolling across the screen. The flash drive from Victor, now their lifeline, held the key to Sean's final play. A virus designed to crash Wall Street and pin the blame on Natalie. Kira's fingers flew over the keyboard, her neon-streaked hair tucked behind her ears. "This thing's a beast," she muttered. "Sean hid it in Apex's servers, layered with encryption I've never seen. If it launches, it'll wipe out Hargrove Tech systems and make it look like you pulled the trigger." Natalie's stomach twisted. "How long do we have?" "Hours, maybe," Kira said, her eyes flicking to Andrew. "We need to access Apex's mainframe directly. That means getting into their offices." Andrew stood, his jaw set. "I know a guy on their board. I can get us in. But it's gonna cost me favors, money, maybe my reputation." Natalie grabbed his arm, her voice sharp. "Andrew, you've already risked everything. You don't have to." "Yes, I do," he cut in, his blue eyes fierce. "This isn't just about you anymore. It's about us. I won't let Sean destroy what you've built. The words hit her hard, stirring the love she'd confessed at the gala. She wanted to pull him close, to lose herself in the safety of his arms, but there was no time. They piled into Andrew's Tesla, speeding through the snow-dusted streets, to Apex Capital's headquarters in the financial district. The building loomed like a fortress, its glass facade cold and unyielding. Andrew's contact, a nervous executive named Tom, met them at a side entrance, his hands shaking as he swiped a keycard. "This better be worth it, Kensington," he hissed. "If Hale finds out, I'm done." "Trust me," Andrew said, his voice steady. "You're on the right side." Inside, the office was a maze of dark cubicles and blinking servers. Kira, plugged into the mainframe, her laptop humming as she battled the virus's defenses. Natalie stood watch, her heart pounding. The silence was shattered by the sound of boots on tile. 3 men in black tactical gear, guns drawn, bursting through a stairwell door. "Hale's orders!" one barked. "Take them out!" Andrew shoved Natalie behind a server rack, his body shielding hers. "Stay down!" he yelled, grabbing a metal chair and swinging it at the nearest thug. The impact sent the man sprawling, but another tackled Andrew, pinning him to the ground. Natalie's mind raced. She grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and sprayed it in the second man's face, blinding him. Kira, still typing furiously, shouted, "I'm almost in! Keep them off me!" The third man lunged at Natalie, but Andrew, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead, tackled him, wrestling the gun. Away. The fight was brutal, punches landing with sickening thuds. Natalie swung the extinguisher again, knocking the man out. Andrew staggered to his feet, panting, his shirt torn. "You okay?" he asked, his voice hoarse. She nodded, her hands shaking. "You?" "Barely," he said, managing a weak grin. "But I've had worse nights." Kira let out a triumphant whoop. "Got it! Virus neutralized. I've locked it out of the system and sent proof to the feds. Sean's name is all over it." They stumbled out of the building, the night air biting their skin. Sirens wailed in the distance. Feds, not Hale's goons this time. Andrew's contact had fled, and Natalie knew the cost of his help would haunt him. Back at the loft, they collapsed onto the couch, adrenaline fading into exhaustion. Andrew pulled her close, his arms a haven. "We did it," he whispered, kissing her forehead. "You're safe." But safety was an illusion. The next morning, news broke. Sean was in federal custody, charged with fraud and cybercrime. Marcus Hale's career was over, his name splashed across every headline. Elena had vanished, rumored to have fled to Europe, leaving a trail of debts and broken alliances. Natalie's company, Hargrove Tech, emerged stronger, its stock soaring as investors hailed her as a visionary. Yet the victory was bittersweet. Andrew's role in the Apex break-in leaked, painting him as reckless. His board pushed him out of Kensington Ventures, his reputation in tatters. He sat with Natalie in his penthouse, the city sprawling below, his face etched with resignation. "I'd do it again," he said, his hand finding hers. "For you." Tears stung her eyes. "You lost everything." "Not everything," he said, his voice soft. "I've got you." She kissed him, slow and deep, a promise to rebuild together. "I forgive you," she whispered, meaning it. The lies, the secrets, they'd hurt, but his love had proven true. Weeks later, Natalie stood atop the Empire State Building, the wind tugging at her coat. Manhattan stretched out below, a city of dreams and betrayals. She was the queen now, CEO of a tech empire, her name synonymous with power. Sean was gone, rotting, in a cell. Elena was a ghost, her schemes reduced to whispers, but the cost lingered. Friends lost, trust broken. Andrew's sacrifice a weight on her heart. As she looked out, Andrew joined her, his arms slipping around her waist. "Worth it?" he asked, his voice a quiet rumble. She leaned into him, the city's lights blurring through unshed tears. "Yeah, but it's not over. Elena's out there, and Hale had friends." He nodded, his jaw tight. "Then we keep fighting. Together." Natalie smiled, her heart steady for the first time in years. She'd risen from victim to victor, but the city never slept, and neither did its secrets. What new battles awaited? Stay tuned for a possible sequel, where Natalie's empire faces new threats and Elena's shadow looms large. Will the queen hold her throne, or will Manhattan claim her once more?